Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you. And today we're going to talk about bullying. And our guest coming from Tennessee today is Tom Dahlborg. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to be talking about this very important topic. So thank you for the invitation.
It's my pleasure. As I know, but you guys don't know, Tom is a mental health advocate and has a very, very good experience. Let's say he's seasoned in healthcare and in leading this very important space where we talk about our mental well-being. And more in recent years, we've been talking about bullying at work, on the internet, at school, even in nurseries. And the figures are very high, but it's very high to see. At the same time, it's very confusing because we really need a definition of what bullying is in every federal law. It's not the same as state law. There are different requirements. It's really hard for a school to take action if they don't actually define what bullying is. So to make sure we agree on this, first of all, right, bullying is an aggressive behavior that is intentional, is repeated. It comes from one person or more people, and it can cause physical problems, verbal, psychological, or social harm. This includes name calling, when you call people with nicknames, threats, excluding someone socially, attacks like physically when you are touching a person with your hands or with an object, spreading rumors, that's bullying, and it can happen in many levels, in groups, on your own, in front of a crowd, in front of a net, or just cyberbullying when nobody knows, which also happens when you are a narcissist or an abuser and you bully people not to talk by threatening them. And this can happen very much in every place, even to 50-year-olds. It's not just children. But there is also another type of bullying, which is called the silent treatment, and is often used as a tool for punishing, for manipulating and controlling people. And when used repeatedly with this intention, it is a form of emotional abuse and bullying, which cause social exclusion and suffering. So it's a very, very large. This is like saying cancer, it's everywhere. So my first question is, how did you get involved in a situation where bullying became very prominent? And I feel all you're going to say, because my own son was bullied a lot when he was young. Now he's 23. He's no longer in that situation, but gosh, he's become quite a solitaire person. He doesn't really trust people that much because there was a lot of bullying. What was your experience?
Uh, it all began when our son was 4 years old. So, actually, taking a step back, my son was born with neurological challenges. He grew into be a very large child. He was a big kid. And I remember one day he was going out to play with his friends and he went across the way and we were watching him go and see his friends in the front yard. And again, he was 4 years old at the time. And all his friends are being invited in to the home. So we see everyone's going in, so we turn away, and moments later, he comes running through the door, hysterical. He is crying. He's wailing, and we thought he got physically hurt. Long story short, the woman next door let everyone in, and then when my son came up to the door, she looked at him and she screamed at him, "You can't come in. You're too big." And so Franz, as we witnessed what happened, as we learned about what happened, we started to get a feel for what bullying was at all different levels. As you said, it's multifaceted. Our son, throughout his life, was bullied predominantly by adults. So we thought we were the worst parents ever. So we took steps to assist him, to help him. And we learned the statistics. You started to say 27% of children are bullied by parents, 42% by coaches, 37% by teachers, 20% of high schoolers are bullied in school, 42%, almost half of children online are being bullied. And so when we witnessed what happened to our son at 4 years old, and then over the time, over his lifespan, and he's 30 now, we saw bullying in all different levels. And we just knew we needed to get in the game and we needed to help and make a difference. And so we got on our knees and we prayed and we said, how can we help? And that's how we started to get into this.
Wow, it's a very sad experience to see your own child being attacked. But as they grow up, you think they're going to acquire the tools. But bullying has been going worse. It's going worse.
Absolutely. And for us, so I talked to my son, and over time we used basketball as a tool to help him to learn to love himself, because the world wasn't necessarily going to love him, but he needed to learn to love himself. God created our son in his image, and he needed to learn to love himself. And so basketball became this tool. And I ended up sitting down with him, and I said, here's a story. We could help others. Would you be okay with that? And he said, absolutely, Daddy. Let's write the book. Let's write a book and put it out there. And that's what we did. So I was blessed. I got opportunities to be on TV and all these other things around this. Hard pause here, because what happened though, years later, our son, when he was 23 years old, came to my wife and I, and he said, I need to tell you something. Back in fourth grade, I put a belt around my neck. I didn't want to live anymore because of the pain of the bullying that he was enduring. So you want to talk about humbling or humility. Here I am getting all this accolades for helping. I had no idea the pain my own son was feeling, the extent of the impact of bullying. So again, we got on our knees, humbled ourselves, and looked up and said, help us do better. And that's what we've done. We've continued to evolve, and now we engage our entire family to help others going through these types of things. Because, and again, you alluded to it earlier, there's short-term impacts from bullying. So a child that's bullied by a coach may not get playing time. That's important. There's long-term impacts. So a child who is bullied years later may get into substance use or other things like that. And then these eternal impacts, and that's there, but for the grace of God, didn't happen for Tommy, but there's many other children that have taken their lives because of bullying. And so this is not just I grew up in the 80s, it used to be rub some dirt on it, get over it. And it's like, no, this is far more impactful. This is far more dangerous. And we need to together make a difference.
Absolutely. And what a sad thing to know that we cannot feel safe and that our children are not safe going to school or to clubs or whatever. There's always somebody who seems to be bigger and stronger. But when I did read or listen to a podcast once, I can't remember which one of the 2 years ago. Actually, I think it was an article in Forbes, and there was this woman, and you look at her, she's like a wonderful lady, high up in career, doing really well, corporate world. And she said, you look at me, you think I'm just fine. But when I was young, I was a bully. I was bullying everyone in my class, and I would take off the weakest possible people, the sweetest possible people over nerds, because at home I was extremely unhappy because there were situations with the parents that made her really unhappy. And so she would be taking on anyone else because she couldn't do anything to her parents. So she would then attack everyone else because she was extremely unhappy. And I read so many stories like that before, and somebody who actually made peace with a bully that was bullying them 30 years before because they realized the struggle. So you've done so much work to help your son, but did you ever manage to find out why this was happening? So, what was the trigger for the person that made them bully your son even later on? Did you find a general reason, or is it different for every person?
You know, we all want that easy button. We all want to say, well, someone who's been bullied becomes a bully. Yes, but not always. So there's peer factors, there's family factors, as you described perfectly. There's emotional factors, there's school factors, all different factors. So Tommy was bullied consistently by adults for 18 plus years. Our neighbor, in her particular case, our understanding was she was in an abusive relationship herself. So did that contribute to that? Perhaps. I don't know that for a fact. I know context. And so we need to understand that we may not always understand, and yet there's always something we can do because it is that important. In fact, you or your audience may be familiar with the term ACEs. So adverse childhood experiences. So that's abuse and neglect. It's parents who exhibit mental illness or substance use. It's going through divorce or the family going through a divorce or a death of a parent, incarceration. Those things happening to a child or those things happening while there's a child in present leads to adverse childhood experiences, so the ACEs, and it leads to, as I said, substance use disorder and addictions. It leads to risky behaviors. It leads to mortality, decrease in mortality. It leads to all these different things. The CDC in 2017 classified bullying or being a victim of bullying as an ACE, as an adverse childhood experience, because it has that greater impact. So, regardless of the driver, of why someone's bullying, the impact is significant. That said, we need to help the person who's exhibiting the bullying behaviors because they're hurting too in some ways, as much as we're helping the actual bullying victim. So it's just as God calls us to do to pray for our enemies and love our enemies. These people, they're God's children too, and we have an opportunity to help them, which also will break generational curses, will lead to healthier populations, healthier families, healthier communities. So again, the impact of bullying is significant, and the impact we all can make is significant as well.
Absolutely. It makes me think, have you ever witnessed a person that used to be a bully and then came forward and say, I used to be a bully and then I realized I had therapy or I had a time of pondering, whatever, and then I realized I had to change. Did you have this first-hand experience yourself?
In a sense, I was on stage one time talking about this very thing and talking about coaches and talking about what makes a good coach, a loving coach, a God fearing coach, and what makes someone not so much, and perhaps a bullying coach. And while I was on stage, my bride was in the audience, and this coach came up to her during one of the breaks and he says, you know what? That's me, the bullying coach. He said, that's me. I need to look in the mirror. This is forcing me to look in the mirror, and I need to change because I am hurting kids, and I don't want to hurt kids anymore.
Wow.
It's it's we're all coming from different places, and again, I don't know his story. I don't know if he was in an abusive home. I don't know, or if he's just totally all about wins and losses, and maybe his income is based on that, and so much pressure. Those are reasons, but those reasons need to be set aside because we can't hurt kids. And I don't care if it's a 4-year old, an 8-year old, or a child in college. These are children that we need to help, and we can help. And that was a really nice message, and I pray for that coach, and I hope he changed his ways. And wouldn't that be an amazing story? That's a movie right there. If he changed
Yes.
his ways and did a 180, and these kids all of a sudden start excelling, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I think also lots of parents, without realizing, they are saying comments that undermining their kids. They have the best intentions, but they keep those nicknames and the little sharp little stabbing things. And eventually the child, which is a fragile thing, is building up the space. What is me? Who am I here? What am I doing? When he starts to see himself as less than other people, but actually just the expectations of the parents are not met, and who knows what fancy expectation they have. So we have to be a little bit more careful. I'm not saying to do the coddling parenting at all, because we need boundaries, we need goals and strategies, all good. But sometimes, yeah, even as husbands and wives, you can see a little bit of bullying in certain relationships when perhaps one of the two starts using maybe an adjective they shouldn't be using. And there are ways of making people feel they're not good enough, isn't there? Bullying, it can really carve away that self-confidence that we are born with. And so we don't see the potential. We cannot dream anymore because we think we're not good enough because look, we think that the way we're treated has to do with us, but sometimes it really has to do with the bullies.
Exactly. We become lesser. We're positioning children to become lesser. And so Um, as part of the program we put together, because you are 100% spot on, as part of the program my son and our family put together, it's around, part of it is around how to help a child excel on the court, say in basketball or on the field in baseball or soccer, um, but do so in a constructive way by, as an example, um, by fanning the flame of the good. So take a step back. Tommy, learning to love his, my son's name is Tommy, learning to love his own body. He's a big kid. We used basketball. He wasn't fast. He couldn't dribble very well at the beginning and all these different things. But what a big kid can do is leverage his body to rebound. So I taught him to rebound, and he became the best rebounder at 8 years old, to the point that high school coaches were starting to seek him out and wanting him to help their players in high school learn how to box out and rip it and rebound. So it was fanning the flame of his goodness, fanning the flame of what he thought was bad, but learning to love it and turn it into a positive, turn it into a strength. And so, yes, parents, we make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And one of those things is we focus on trying to fix somebody, fix a broken part, when we really should be focusing on, this is what your strength is. Let's accelerate that strength. Let's if the child wants to, let's help you embrace that strength even more so, because what happens at the end of the day, to a point you just made a moment ago, the child's self-esteem grows, their confidence grows. Now they're ready to tackle maybe improving their ball handling in basketball or whatever it might be. So it's really, again, I think you're absolutely spot on, and we've actually embraced that and have helped children and parents and coaches in that space.
It's brilliant thoughts, Tom. And I want to go a little bit deeper in this. You have two core principles. You have a love in action and the heart and mind communication. I would like to go a little bit deeper on that.
Sure, absolutely. So you used the term earlier, actually a moment ago, about good intentions. That, what's the old saying? The highway to hell is paved with good intentions. So we need to combine heart, good intention, with mind, evidence-based, science-based, practical, tangible protocols, techniques, tactics, whatever we want to call them, to stop bullying and help children excel. One of the things, as an example, and this also gets into that love aspect, the best way to counteract adverse childhood experiences is with positive childhood experiences. The science is there. Johns Hopkins has done tons of studies. Christine Bethel has done great work in that space. So, what's a positive child experience? Helping a child feel safe and protected by an adult in the home. Not always possible. But what we can do is we can identify if a child is in a home that isn't safe or protected, and help them in certain ways there and engage experts to do so. We can educate parents and show them the why and the why love isn't just this woohoo thing, but it's actually a very practical love in action thing that we can do to help our children and thus create that safe and protected home. Another positive childhood experience is the ability to talk with family about feelings. How often are we told, especially as men, young boys, but also girls, just suck it up, just stick that down. We don't want to hear about that. We don't want to see you cry. Stop crying. How often do we hear that? But rather, help parents, help communities, help schools, help sports programs understand that feelings are incredibly important, and we need to embrace them, embrace the child that's experiencing the feelings, and help them talk, and therefore listen. And don't listen to reply. Don't listen just to get a goal accomplished or to say, I checked the box, I listened, but listen because we actually care and that we actually love these children. Another piece is a sense of belonging in school. You mentioned schools earlier. We have an opportunity to work with schools, and we do so, work with schools to create the culture of belonging. Another one is support by friends, helping children find real friends, not a friend because they have X number of likes or follows or whatever the terminology is nowadays, but a real friend that you can talk with. And then on top of that, and this gets into coaching and teachers and others, two non-parent adults who generally care about children, that generally care about that child or those children. Those are positive childhood experiences. You look at that, that's love. That's creating love in action. That's connecting heart and mind. And again, it has to be intention. It has to be science based. The science is there combined with that love. That's how we counteract ACEs and position children with the positive childhood experiences.
True. And I love your approach because you also use your faith in God to guide you. So you didn't just go to read the studies on John Hopkins Institute. You went deeper and said, well, this creator has created the bully and has created the victim. So he knows how to interact with both. He knows what's going on. He can guide me. And I think that's amazing because nowadays most people are like, God, who is God? Who is Jesus? You know, but actually, there is a little bit of presumption here to think we created ourselves out of fresh air, we created out of an explosion, all this perfection. I think it's there. And perhaps even a person has never thought about praying, when they see their own child suffering, there'll be a point, or maybe has committed suicide because this happens. Some people are not dead, but they are dead emotionally because they closed up. Maybe there is emotionality, maybe there is self harm, maybe there is social anxiety. This could be, in certain cases, the result of losing the self of how wonderful and precious we are. And I always thought the big things that I got from going from atheist to believer was understanding that God loves everyone. That doesn't mean he condones us when we hurt others. No. But he loves everyone, even the little me, the sinner that has made lots of things. And that is the big change that made me think, wow, if he loves me, then he's going to love everyone else because I've done so many mistakes. Right? And he loves the bully. He can talk to this bully.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
our faith is so very much important to us. We've learned and grown in our faith over time. The most recently, well, are you familiar with the 7 second pause? What folks call the 7 second pause. So I'll share for you and your audience. So what it is it's a mindfulness technique of breathing deeply for 7 seconds, and again, science points to this, which allows our prefrontal cortex to engage, which promotes thoughtful decision making over impulsive or emotional reactions. When our son was first being bullied, we did not use the 7 second pause. We were having emotional reactions. We were impulsive. We made every mistake you could possibly make as a parent. So again, we want others to learn from our mistakes so they don't have to go through them. What we've done more recently is we've taken that 7 second pause and we brought it into our faith. So another term for a pause is intermissa, and so Latin. So it's taking, the way I word it is, we've taken the 7 second pause into a sacred progression. So when something's happening, and I say to parents, I say to coaches, I say to teachers, when something's happening, take that 7 second pause or take that intermissa. First, meditatio. So that's meditation. That's process. Process what's happening before you react. Oratio. That's prayer. Pray to God. Pray for his insight. Pray for his wisdom. Contemplatio. Listen for it. So contemplation. Listen for it. And start, as your prefrontal cortex is starting to engage, you're now able to meditate, pray to God, contemplate, and then and only then actio, which is move into action, move into loving right action, move into godly action. And so I wish I did that when my son was 4. I do it more and better now, as does my bride, who we do this together. And then we add to this lectio, reading the word. Because when you know what truth is and you study it and you don't take it out of context, you don't try to have it fit your values, but you're learning God's values. When you put all that together, that sacred intermissa, that allows you to move into that loving right action, that heart and mind loving right action. And it connects us deeper to God in our faith. And it's helped all of our children, and hopefully it's helped others beyond.
It's a great concept. I like the idea of this meditation and calming. And I know of many people that say, when you're angry, count to 10 before doing anything else. There are neuroscience based reasons for that, because if we were to act on emotion, we wouldn't be humans anymore. We would be like a beast has been attacked and it will just do something. You know, when you go and pick up, I have deer outside. If you go nearby, they're going to just, wow, what's going on? This person is going to, they're going to react like crazy. But if I had the time to see and just give them a carrot, you know, they would be like, oh, it's okay, just a poor human trying to come nearby. So, but they will automatically, instinctively, whoa, do something. A dog might attack you or a bear. And we are not animals. We have to learn to calm down and think and reason and pray and meditate, which are all the things that we can't do in the current world trends, which is all about doing the rest, you know, I mean, especially cyberbullying, which I think is terrible. I do have to ask you one last question. Well, not the last, but how is your son doing today?
He he created a podcast called Strength Through Vulnerability, which he's put on hiatus, where he started to help others go through who have gone through this and other mental health challenges. He deals with depression, he deals with anxiety. I've heard him say that death is always right there, and so he's still very challenged, and he has good days and bad days, as you typically do in these situations. On his good days, he's well positioned to help others. On his bad days, he is too, because he's showing what you do on those bad days that does not lead to taking one's own life. So
Yeah,
he's a wonderful child, and he's married. They have a new baby coming in December, and so he's just a great kid that has a lot of challenges, like a lot of people do. And
of course.
you help as best you can.
He has the tools, he has the awareness. And before we go, I wanted to talk about you have his award winning books. Tell me a little bit about them.
So a couple of books, yes. So we have the Big Kid in Basketball is one of our books, and the Big Kid in Basketball is this journey. A lot of what we've talked about today. It also includes practical tips, some of the things we talked about today, but also what not to do. So there's a lot of things that schools and youth programs and families have implemented that the science says no, it might feel right, but actually leads to great harm. So that book is both tangible and helps you address bullying and prevent bullying and support those who are being bullied. And it's the story as well. So it's all weaved together. And then that can be found at on Amazon or dahlborghlg.com. And then the other book I wanted to mention is a book series my daughter, my oldest daughter, who competed in the Miss USA, who was bullied herself, who's this brilliant graphic designer and works hand in hand with me. We created, or in the process of creating, the Light Book series, which is a book series for children to engage children and families and teachers and coaches to tackle the challenges we're talking about here and other challenges. They're designed to help a child understand and find their own voice, find their own agency, but also understand all of that comes from God. And so it's a Christian book series that we're really excited about. It's a picture book series, and that should be coming out in 2026.
Whoa, something to look forward to. I will be putting all the links or whatever you have in the description of the show so people can go to it and have a look, because nowadays bullying it's everywhere and we have to understand, recognize it, report it when it's necessary, help the child or adult, help a bullying person to understand what they're doing so they can change. Hopefully, I always believe in, you know, feeling sorry and changing, because we all make mistakes. But there's a point when we understand, hey, is that how I want to live? Maybe I can have a better life. I cannot think that a bully can actually be truly happy by making people hurt. There is a point where you lose your conscience. But I think we have great hope for everyone. And before we go, is there anything that we have not talked about that you wanted to share? I know you gave all your tips already, but anything else that needed to be said?
There's a lot out there. I'll simply say this. One of the things that we, all of us, can do right now at this moment and each and every day is role model the respective non-bullying behavior. And I'll give you the reason why. So again, the science. Albert Moravian is a social scientist. He studied the impact on our communication skills and our ability to inspire people. And what he found was the following: 7% of the influence we have on somebody is based on the words we say. 38% of that influence is based on how we say those words, our inflection, our pauses, and so forth. 55% of the influence we have on somebody is based on what they see us do. And so I ask all parents, all children, everyone out there, if we want to really make the change, if we want to be the change as Gandhi talks about, what Gandhi really said was change yourself to be the change. And so I'd say, let's change ourselves, let's improve ourselves, let's role model what we're looking for out in this world. That will help make that change and lead to betterment for everybody.
That's brilliant. I've actually written a book about that, a 5 pages book for my graphic design review course 20 years ago. And I remember being this man, and he was going around saying, oh, look, this is wrong, this is wrong. And he wasn't changing, he was just complaining. And then there was this figure that came out and said, well, if you don't change yourself first, well, are you going to change the world, And I always thought it's so easy for us. We can just go out and look at the person that is sitting on their own. Nobody's talking to them because they are different. Maybe they are neurodivergent, or maybe their body doesn't reflect the standards that we have set for everyone. Maybe they're not the same race, or the color of the skin is not right, or they're not dressed in the same way that everyone is in that culture. So, and this person is just not talking to anyone. People are on purpose ignoring them. How do we feel? And are we just say we're sorry, or are we actually going to sit with them and say hello? It's just a small step, isn't it? Just to show them they exist. So, yeah. Okay, well,
I love that.
I will not comment anymore because bullying is very heavy on my heart all the time. I see how children are treated. Sometimes I almost cry because I think, how can you treat somebody else like that? But that's the world today, and the good thing is we can take action. So because of that, Tom, I'm really thankful that you came to the show today, because you can give hope to everyone, whether you guys are Christian or atheist or whatever. The message remains the same. We all deserve to be loved and accepted and given a chance, and respect goes a long way in helping people to feel great about themselves. So thank you so much for being with us today, Tom. It's been great.
I appreciate that. Thank you again for the invitation. And thank you for the messages you continue to put out there. They're so inspiring and they make such a difference. So I'm grateful to you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you will distribute these episodes widely, because bullying is a serious problem that needs to be tackled. We can start by sharing these tips so we can start having a look. And of course, go to Tom Dahlborg's website to all have a look at the books and see if there is anything that could be useful for you or for one of your friends, maybe from a school where you see there is a lot of bullying and they want like a little bit of a different way of tackling it. There is a lot more than just punishing people. And hopefully we will spread the good word in the preparation for the last 3 months of this very heavy year, where we saw people resorting of violence to acknowledge some problems. And I think once we learn emotional self-regulation and really talking to people and allowing these feelings to go out in a safe way, lots of bullying will disappear. So hopefully this is a good episode to change the world. We'll start with this. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.